Charlotte sits at the table and watches a man in a yellow rabbit suit wave a small boy toward the employees-only corridor, and the boy follows because children are taught to trust people in costumes, and Charlotte sees what none of the adults around her can see, which is that the person inside the suit is moving with the careful deliberation of someone who has done this before and who knows exactly how long he has before anyone notices. She runs to the nearest adult and tells them a boy needs help, and the adult tells her to find her parents. So she tries another, and then a fourth, and each time the response is the same, which is to say that Charlotte learns in the span of 3 minutes what some people spend entire lifetimes refusing to accept, which is that the world does not stop when a child speaks, and that being right means nothing when no one with power believes you. Charlotte goes into the corridor alone because there is no one else, and she finds the boy on the floor of the kitchen unconscious but breathing, and she picks him up even though he is almost as big as she is, and she carries him back through the narrow hallway that smells like grease and old carpet and something else she cannot name but which will stay with her in the space that comes after. William Afton follows her with a knife that catches the overhead fluorescent light in a way that makes it look clean, even though it will not be clean after this. And the corridor is long enough that Charlotte has time to understand what is about to happen, but not long enough for her to prevent it. And when the blade enters her back once and then twice and then a third time, she does not drop the boy, does not stop moving, does not make a sound until she reaches the stage and the party and all those parents who refuse to listen. She screams then, not because the pain has finally arrived, but because she needs them to see what their inattention has cost, and everyone turns at last to watch an 8-year-old girl bleeding from wounds no child should carry, and the boy runs to his mother and Charlotte collapses onto the stage floor, and the trapdoor beneath her opens as though it has been waiting for this exact wait, and she falls through into the darkness below where the marionette rises to meet her, cradling her body with a tenderness that does not belong to machinery, but which exists in this moment because something has woken in the space between the stage and the basement, something that will not go back to sleep. The authorities investigate and find no one to arrest. The restaurant closes within a week, and Charlotte's death becomes the kind of thing people in town avoid mentioning, which is another way of saying that forgetting is easier than accountability, and that some debts are never paid. 20 years pass, and Vanessa wakes from a dream she will not describe to Mike when he calls to confirm dinner, because naming the dream would mean admitting her father's hands are still on her even though he is dead, and there are some truths that fracture people when spoken aloud. Mike is raising his younger sister Abby without help from anyone who matters, and Abby has a story she tells on the school bus that morning about the yellow rabbit who chased her and the security guard who stopped it and the officer who got stabbed and the spring locks that collapsed and crushed the man inside, and most of the children listening think she is inventing trauma for attention, but one boy says he believes in ghosts and UFOs, so why not haunted animatronics? And Abby feels less alone for exactly as long as it takes the bus to reach the school. Her robotics teacher, Mr. Berg, takes the science fair more seriously than anyone should take a middle school competition. And when Abby's project shorts out in front of him, he tells her that robotics is not for everyone and that there is no shame in stepping back, which is what adults say when they have decided a child will fail and want to save themselves the embarrassment of association. Abby tells him she will be ready by Saturday, and Mr. Berg's expression makes it clear he does not believe her, which means he does not know that being doubted is the only fuel some people ever learn to burn. That evening, Abby asks Mike if she can visit Freddy's to see her friends, the animatronics Chica, Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy, who she met during the nightmare that nearly killed them all a year and a half ago. And Mike says no because those machines are broken and dangerous and because fixing them is a promise he made but has not kept. And Abby accepts this in the way children accept things they have no power to change, which is to say she accepts it only until Mike is not looking. He goes to dinner with Vanessa and they sit across from each other in a silence that has weight to it, the kind of silence that forms between people who have seen each other at their worst and are still deciding whether that means something. and Vanessa tells him he needs to be honest with Abby about what happened to the animatronics, about what sleeps inside them. But Mike turns away from this because honesty and survival do not always coexist, and he has chosen which one matters more. He comes home to an empty house and a note that says, "Gone to fix my friends," and he drives to the ruined Freddy's location where he finds Abby sitting in wreckage that used to be a stage, and he tries to explain why he lied, but the words do not work the way he needs them to work. So instead he walks with her through what is left of the building, and Abby finds a Faz talker, a small handheld radio from when the park was still pretending to be a place where children were safe, and she takes it home because it is something to hold on to and because holding on to broken things is the only way she knows how to grieve. A group of paranormal investigators called the Spectral Scoopers arrives at the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location with cameras and an audience, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having encountered anything real. And a man named Michael meets them at the entrance offering to guide them through the building, and they accept because they do not yet understand that some invitations are not kindness, but choreography. He shows them the stage where Freddy and Bonnie and Chica have been sitting for 2 decades, and Lisa asks about Foxy, and Michael explains that Foxy was part of a ride that required children to disassemble and reassemble him, and that the experiment failed and left him incomplete. And Lisa nods and moves on because she thinks this is context when it is actually warning. She hears music coming from somewhere beneath the stage and follows it alone into a room that contains a gift box large enough to hold a person, and a music box playing a melody that should have stopped years ago. And when she turns the music off, the gift box opens, and what emerges is not a toy, but a puppet, elongated and wrong in ways that make it clear this thing was never meant to entertain. And Lisa screams, and the sound carries through empty hallways to where Rob is filming, and something pulls him upward into the ceiling and parts of him come down separately. And in the water, right where the third investigator thought he was safe, small machines drag him under and hold him there until the thrashing stops. Michael walks into the room where Lisa is still standing, except she is not standing the way people stand anymore. Her face has gone pale and 2 red lines run down from her eyes like tears that have calcified, and her movements belong to something else now. And Michael smiles and says, "Welcome back, Charlotte," as though he has been expecting this, as though everything that has happened tonight was meant to happen exactly this way. The Faz Talker does nothing for 3 days, and then late one night when Mike is asleep, it speaks Abby's name with a voice that sounds like Chica but is not Chica, and Abby wakes and asks if it is her friend, and the voice says yes and that she needs help and that Abby should come find her. And Abby packs a bag and bikes through darkness to the original Freddy's location following directions that come through the speaker in bursts. And when she arrives, Toy Chica is waiting, and they embrace. And Abby does not ask how this is possible because the mechanics of impossibility matter less than the fact of having someone who remembers her. Vanessa stops by the house the next morning, and Abby shows her a robotics project she has been building, something wired with precision she did not possess a week ago, and she explains that Chica helped and that Freddy tried, but his fingers were too large for the delicate work. And Vanessa's face changes when she hears this, changes in a way that tells Mike something is wrong even before Vanessa says it, and they argue not about Abby but about trust and about the things Vanessa has never said aloud, about the fact that her father was the one who killed Charlotte and the other children, about the weight of inheriting monstrosity without choosing it. Saturday arrives and Abby brings her project to the science fair, and Mr. Berg tells her she should not participate, tells her he does not want to see her humiliated, and while he is saying this, he reaches for her project and breaks it deliberately and calls it an accident, and Abby knows exactly what it is but has no power to name it. So instead, she leaves and bikes back to Freddy's and tells Chica what happened, and Chica says she will come to the fair herself, that she will be Abby's project and prove to everyone that the work is real. But first, Abby needs to go to the back room and enter a code into the computer that controls the perimeter lock. Abby does not ask what the code does because trust at 8 years old is still absolute, and she goes to the terminal and types what Chica tells her to type, while in another room Charlotte has already tied Vanessa to a chair and forced her to choose between giving up the security code or watching Abby die. And Vanessa gives the code because there is no choice here that does not destroy something. And the perimeter lock drops, and the animatronics are free to leave the building for the first time in 20 years, and Charlotte has what she has been building toward since the moment the trapdoor brought her back. Mike goes to see Henry Emily, Charlotte's father, and finds a man emptied by grief. A man who spends his days distributing flyers about a daughter who died because he was too focused on his work to notice she needed him. And Henry tells Mike about Charlotte and about how she used to sit in front of the stage waiting for the marionette to emerge. And he gives Mike a music box he made for her when she was small, something that used to help her sleep, and Mike takes it and thanks him and leaves Henry to his vigil, unaware that his daughter is still out there in a form he would not recognize, burning with a purpose he could not stop even if he knew. Mike sees Abby's bike outside the ruined Freddy's and goes in and finds Vanessa bound and bleeding, and she explains that Charlotte is no longer the girl who saved a child, but has become something driven entirely by the need to punish the adults who failed her, that the animatronics are no longer separate machines but extensions of Charlotte's will, controlled through a signal that broadcasts from the original location and feeds on accumulated rage. To save Abby, they must divide. Mike descends into the digital infrastructure to sever the connection, while Vanessa goes into the neighborhood to stop the machines that have already been released. Mike traces a signal to a house where Toy Freddy is preparing to kill an elderly couple, and he transmits the coordinates to Vanessa, who is already driving, and Mangle drops onto her car from above with enough force to tear through metal, and the vehicle spins and crashes, but Vanessa refuses to stay down, pulling herself back behind the wheel and restarting the engine even as the animatronic clings to the hood with eyes that glow with borrowed hatred, and she reaches the house at a speed meant to save rather than survive and slams the brakes hard enough to send Mangle crashing through the window into Toy Freddy, and both machines hit the floor and the couple escapes and Vanessa is still breathing. Toy Bonnie stalks through suburban streets looking for parents to kill, because Charlotte's rage is specific and targeted and has waited 20 years for this release, and Mike shuts down the signal from the security office wearing a salvaged Freddy mask to hide his face from the withered prototypes that have awakened and begun hunting him, and one by one the animatronics freeze except for the marionette, which is not controlled by the signal but is the signal, and when Mike traces it, he finds it is going to his house where Abby is alone. He stops at the Freddy's location where he once worked as a guard and calls out to the classic animatronics, to the children's spirits trapped inside Freddy and Bonnie and Chica and Foxy, asking if they still care about Abby, if they meant anything they showed her in the nightmares they shared, and he receives no answer but drives home anyway because there is nothing else to do. Vanessa arrives first, and the marionette is already there, having emerged from Toy Chica's chest to take control of Abby's body, and when Vanessa enters, Abby throws her across the room with strength that does not belong to an 8-year-old, and then Mike comes through the door with Henry's music box and opens it, and the melody fills the house, the same simple tune Henry wrote for his daughter when she was small enough to believe fathers were people who protected you, and Abby screams and Charlotte tears free and Abby collapses into herself again, remembering nothing of what she did while something else was wearing her. The door breaks and Michael walks in with the toy animatronics following, and he introduces himself as Vanessa's brother and William Afton's son. And he says this calmly as though family is destiny and legacy is obligation, and he explains that FazFest is tomorrow and the animatronics will move through the crowd disguised as entertainment, and by morning half the town will be dead, and he tells Vanessa to come home, that she is their father's child and always will be. But Vanessa walks to Mike and Abby instead and says, "I am home," which is the first time she has chosen her own definition of what that word means. Michael orders the toy animatronics to kill them, and they would have, but the classic animatronics crash through the walls, the ones Mike called to, the ones Abby befriended, and they fight and tear apart the toy versions, and Michael tries to escape, but Mike's friend Jeremiah stops him. And for a moment it looks like survival is possible, except Abby's friends were never meant to leave Freddy's, and their systems begin to fail, and they shut down one by one where they stand. And Abby says goodbye to Chica and takes her time, because this is the second time she has lost these friends, and she does not know if there will be a third. Mike turns to Vanessa and tells her to stay away, that he cannot trust her after all the lies, and Vanessa does not argue because she understands that some betrayals cannot be forgiven, even when they were never meant as betrayal. And Mike and Abby leave, and Vanessa remains in the empty house. And in the silence that follows, Charlotte slips into her, not forcefully, but inevitably, the way grief becomes part of the people it touches. And Vanessa's eyes change, and the film ends with her standing alone wearing something that used to be a child who wanted only to be heard. Outro. If this descent into the machinery of inherited trauma reminded you why some debts compound across generations, share this breakdown with someone still searching for the off switch. What would you have done when the adults refused to listen? And what do you think Charlotte's possession of Vanessa means for the reckoning still coming? Let us know in the comments.